Hey everyone, and welcome to the Digital Futures Flashpoint series. My name is Jennifer Kravickas, and I serve the University of Cincinnati as an Associate VP for Research. I'm really excited today to have you join us, and I'm happy to welcome you here to this panel discussion about cryptocurrency in the context of philanthropy. This is our sixth conversation of consequence in the Flashpoint series, a series that's hosted by the University of Cincinnati Office of Research. I want to thank our panelists, I want to thank our moderator, and of course our staff for all the time and hard work that went into preparing for this event. So thank you for real. And also to our audience, thank you for choosing to be here with us today. But I want to go back to a minute ago when you heard me describe the series as the Digital Futures Flashpoint series. You may be wondering, what does that mean? And I'll tell you, Digital Futures actually means two things. First, it's a major research program here at the University of Cincinnati that is a part of the Research 2030 10-year plan for research. And it's also the name of a building that's 180,000 square feet that is interdisciplinary, and it's going up right now over in what's called the Cincinnati Innovation District, not far from where we are today. So that's pretty exciting stuff. And if you want to learn more about it, I'm your person. So reach out to me at research@uc.edu and, let's chat. So without further ado, I'm going to now turn it over to my friend and our moderator, Jay Shabria. Jay?
Jennifer, thanks a lot. I appreciate you allowing me to do this once again. I really do enjoy hosting the series. I learn a lot of things. So to our audience, this is our second year of the Flashpoint series. That's a series that highlights how University of Cincinnati's researchers are getting out of the ivory tower and solving problems that matter. Our topic today is hopefully going to demystify something that's in the news, but many people don't really understand how to practically apply it, and that's cryptocurrency. So like many people that are watching, I was a Bengals fan this last weekend, and I watched that game, the Super Bowl. So those of you who are watching this, as an archived footage, the Super Bowl just happened this last weekend, and I don't really want to bring up a sore spot for Bengals fans, but there it is. But if you were watching the game on TV, you saw that cryptocurrency was all over the commercials, and it was really in the news the next day. It's quickly become mainstream, and nonprofits are figuring out how to use it in their fundraising strategies. According to a Fidelity charitable study last year, crypto investors are more generous to charities than the investor population as a whole. Our panel today is going to explore this very topic. If you have a question for the panel, please put it in the chat and we'll do our best to address it. Just please put it in the chat and it's going to come to me and I'll try to curate and try to get to it as soon as possible. The conversation is also going to be archived on the UC Digital Futures YouTube page. And we'll provide a link to that as well too here during the program. So you'll be able to see all of our conversations that we've had. So with that, I'm going to introduce the panelists and we'll get right to it. First, we've got Michael Jones. Michael is an associate professor of economics at the University of Cincinnati. He's also going to be leading a lab on crypto in the Digital Futures building, which Jennifer just told you about. He's an expert in this area, and he's going to talk to us about how UC is a leader in crypto. Aaron Clemens is president and CEO of the Northern Cincinnati Foundation, which is focused on making an impact in the region through grants to causes and organizations that are helping to improve the quality of life in Northern Cincinnati. Alex Wilson is the co-founder of The Giving Block. This is the go-to solution for nonprofits looking to accept cryptocurrencies, and we're so thankful to have him here today. And finally, Edwin Gauthier. He is the VP of Innovation at the United Way and is one of the leading change agents in that iconic nonprofit. So I want to thank all of you for joining us. We really appreciate it. I think we're going to have a fantastic discussion. We're going to get right to it. Michael, I'm going to start with you. How is the University of Cincinnati and Digital Futures involved in cryptocurrency? What are you guys doing?
Right. Thanks, Jay. Well, cryptocurrency is really part of the future of the digital economy. And so just like the internet transformed society by being a global, permissionless, decentralized network of information, cryptocurrencies are a global, decentralized network of value transfer. And so it's really important that the university takes a thought leadership role. And the university's mission is two parts, both education and research. And so on the education side, we're still early in understanding how cryptocurrency is going to affect society. And so we want to make sure that we provide opportunities such as this one, where people can learn more about cryptocurrencies. So in the past year or so, we have held workshops on digital asset investing. In the fall, we held a workshop on NFTs, non-fungible tokens, how you can use them to fundraise, for example, for your nonprofit organization. And next week, we're going to be having a workshop on stablecoins and central bank digital currencies. So that's the education piece. And then on the research piece, you mentioned earlier that we're going to be having a crypto economics lab in this new Digital Futures building in the fall. It's going to be a physical space where students, researchers, and those in the community can engage with us. We'll have actual hardware. We'll have crypto mining hardware in that lab. We'll have digital sensors that are putting data onto the blockchain. And so we're going to use that space to explore questions like, how should we invest these digital assets that we hold? What are best ways to fundraise using NFTs? And so education and research are those two missions that we're going to be pursuing as part of the Digital Futures strategy.
This is fantastic. I mean, look, it's one of those things that I don't know that most people understand that University of Cincinnati is like leading on this, and the fact that you're doing is amazing. Edwin, I'm going to come to you next. I know that the United Way has accepted cryptocurrency for a while. When did you start using it, and what made you decide to do this?
Yeah, absolutely. So we started accepting cryptocurrency in 2014. If we hop in the time machine, Bitcoin was worth $400 at that time. The news articles weren't about, LeBron James in a crypto-related TV commercial. It was more like Hitmen and Silk Road and things that were not so savory. So we had some hurdles to overcome to kind of pitch our board, pitch our internal stakeholders. But everybody saw that this was an opportunity to align with our mission. We mobilized the caring power of communities to improve lives. And we saw that there was this growing, passionate group of people who had wealth and wanted to have an outlet to do good with the wealth that they were coming into. So it was an easy decision ultimately for us to accept cryptocurrency. And we've been through all of the major shifts in vendors over the years, and we've learned quite a bit.
So I think back to those times, and you're right, Silk Road was a thing, and you think about illegal arms sales, or you think about drug related things. I'm going to stay with you for just a second. Was there an internal messaging campaign that you had to have to get people to convinced?
Not really. Thankfully, we had some forward-thinking folks on our board. Even some of the financial services leaders who served on our board just said, look, people do bad things with cash and credit card too. And so they understood that the opportunity for where this was going was bigger than the unsavory news stories that were happening in the moment. So we didn't really have to pitch too hard. We just had to do some explaining about where the world was going.
Well, thanks for leading the way on that effort, because it does make it a lot easier for others to follow. Aaron, you have a very specific geography you serve. So sometimes you think, that leads to conservative thinking. Sometimes it's like, we don't really want to make decisions that are kind of outside of the box. How did you decide to move into space?
Sure. To me, it's not like an RRD issue. We had a donor that was working for a local petroleum company that's growing. He's a millennial, he's 26 years old. And he reached out to many other community foundations in the region. We were the community foundation that was willing to bring on the giving block to help facilitate the donation. And it was just a win-win. It was, why wouldn't we grow and change? And I always think of that Henry Ford quote, if I had asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses, right? So, this was it was time. We're happy to grow. Why wouldn't we say yes to these highly appreciated cryptocurrencies and bring on the donation?
I appreciate that very much. Thank you. Alex, you work with both Aaron and Edwin on their nonprofits. I'd love to know the inspiration for what you're building and what it exactly is for people that don't necessarily know what the giving block is.
Yeah, so at a high level, the thing we're trying to do is just make this as easy as possible for nonprofits to be able to accept crypto donations, and of course for donors to be able to give crypto to their favorite causes. The thing that's been pretty unique about the way we've approached it is we've really thought about this as, how do nonprofits tap into this new donor demographic? It's much more than just putting up a donate Bitcoin button on your website. We really want to take it a step further and try to create a culture of giving in the crypto community. So, we've even launched campaigns and initiatives like Crypto Giving Tuesday and Crypto Giving Pledge to really work hard to bring together the donors and the nonprofits in one place.
It's amazing. It's amazing that you had the foresight for this. That's great. Edwin, is this really a strategy to get younger donors engaged? Is that really what's behind driving this?
Yeah, absolutely. And, I'm so appreciative to Alex for understanding both sides of the marketplace, both the nonprofits and the community. because that has been a huge help for us in growing our crypto donations. And so when we look at basic analytics data from unitedway.org, we understand that our average user across the website is 80% female and most likely in the age group of between 45 and 65, except for unitedway.org/Bitcoin, which is the page where you go if you're donating cryptocurrency. And on that page, the average age is 25 to 35, and it's 80% male. We also know that that group is mostly interested in finance and technology. And so we not only are focusing our messaging toward that younger demographic and know that we're penetrating into that younger demographic, but all donations to United Way are actually going to a fund that helps us leverage technology for economic mobility, education, and healthcare. So we know that it's a completely different group of people that are coming to us now and that we're able to tap into.
When I was preparing for this panel, I was really struck by a lot of these stats that like the one you just you told us about, Edwin, about how it's younger and male. There's a lot of things like that. So as we keep talking about it, I know that there's a lot of our audience today is the nonprofit sector, and they're trying to decide if they're going to get into this space or not. So those kinds of things are very informative for us. We have a question that came through, and I'll throw it to the group. So it says, blockchains, NFTs, etc. Do donors believe that crypto is safe/real? Any research on this? Michael, I'm going to come to you on that right now and just see if you have a response to that, and if anyone else does too.
Sure, it's absolutely safe, and it's very real, as you saw from the Super Bowl ahead this Sunday. And so people like myself, people in the younger generation, many of us have accounts that we have purchased cryptocurrency through. These are all, it's legal to purchase cryptocurrency in the United States. It is not forbidden. And as those assets accumulate, they appreciate, then many of us want to have an opportunity to be able to donate that and take advantage of the tax advantages. So there's no issues with owning cryptocurrency in the United States.
Remember, if you have a question, please put it in the chat, and we'll try to get our panelists to answer it. Anyone else have any comments on this question? Because I know this is something that is probably a lot of folks watching are thinking about. And maybe not. We'll just address it throughout the whole thing. Aaron, as you've accepted crypto, what are the benefits that you've seen as a nonprofit?
For us, I think it's done a lot in the visibility space and marketing space for the Northern Cincinnati Foundation. It's made us a leader in a resource, and hey, I have a younger client for the CFPs and the FAs out there, or even the M&A attorneys or estate planning attorneys. I have this young client that wants to give crypto. They have highly appreciated cryptocurrencies. Tell us more. How can we set them up with you? And so, I think that's the biggest thing that it has done for us in this space and in this region, is that it can happen. It's the click of a button on our website. You can click donate crypto and donate instantly, open up a donor advised fund. We were the first ever donor advised fund seated endowment. You probably saw that make national news on Yahoo and other links. So it's a large endowed fund in Middletown, Ohio, that's going to support a community center. So all kinds of possibilities, and we're just happy to be growing and changing and relevant.
Fantastic. Wow. I love hearing cutting edge stories like that. Michael, let's talk a little bit about NFTs a little bit. That's also something that we talk a lot about, non-fungible tokens. And how's that work with Philanthropy? And what are you working on there?
Yeah, so non-fungible tokens have a lot of attention in the media. And the way you can think about a non-fungible token, let's take artwork, for example. When you want to sell that artwork, as soon as that artist sells it, it goes to a gallery, and maybe that gallery sells it to an auction house. But once it's originally sold, that artist doesn't get to keep ongoing collections and income from that. So what a non-fungible token does, essentially it's programmable art. You're allowed to write code so that when the artist sells that NFT, they can continue to receive income and royalties every time that NFT is sold. And so you can imagine how that's attractive from a nonprofit sector, is that if you sell your NFT, and a lot of times this can be artwork. Maybe you work with children and they create paintings and other pieces of art. If you sell that organization that sells it will get that initial infusion of cash. But anytime that artwork is resold, they'll continue to get a portion of those proceeds. And so it makes it a very powerful tool for fundraising. And so here at the University of Cincinnati, we held a workshop. We brought in a local artist who is putting their artwork on the blockchain. And we asked them questions about how do you value this? Because it becomes difficult to put a valuation on a piece of art that can be duplicated. You can make multiple copies. What happens if you make a set of 10 images rather than just one? And so what we're doing here is understanding what are the economic impacts for different types of NFTs and how can that best support the nonprofit and the artist who's creating them.
That's as good a synopsis in a couple minutes as I've heard. So congrats on boiling it down there. Alex, so there's NFTs, there's crypto, there's Bitcoin, there's all kinds of different cryptocurrencies. How does a nonprofit navigate this, all the cryptos out there?
Yeah, so when it comes to deciding which cryptocurrency to accept, it's certainly something you want to have a plan for. I mean, when we work with organizations, we help nonprofits accept sort of a default list of about 70 different cryptocurrencies. And if someone reaches out wanting to donate something else, we'll essentially vet that opportunity for the organization, because the last thing you want to do is accept a cryptocurrency that's worthless essentially because you can't sell it. So that's a major consideration to take into account. There's a lot of cryptos out there. They aren't necessarily all worth something. So you might have donors reach out saying, hey, I just started a cryptocurrency project yesterday, and I want to now donate 1 million of these coins to you. But they don't mention that there's not a way to sell those coins. So that's a service we offer, helping nonprofits navigate that and make sure you're not accepting something that you shouldn't be accepting.
I think this plays along. So we got a question from the audience from the One Source Center. How does a nonprofit use crypto, and can they only spend with vendors who accept crypto? I think there's probably a lot to unpack there. Alex, I'll stay with you too. Maybe you can help explain that one, and then maybe Edwin, you can comment on that a little bit too.
Yeah, so I think 2 important points for this. I mean, crypto, if you're accepting the big ones like Bitcoin and Ethereum, are incredibly liquid and can be converted for cash, immediately. That's something we offer our clients when you onboard with us. If you want everything converted to cash, it'll automatically be converted to cash as soon as it comes in, and then you'd be able to spend it just like you normally would. You'd get the cash in your bank account, so you wouldn't have to worry about that. If you wanted to keep it in crypto, that's always an option too. But of course, the places that accept crypto are going to be a bit more limiting.
Edwin, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, absolutely. We employ the auto sell feature. We have a gift acceptance policy that just states we will transfer or convert cryptocurrency to fiat currency as soon as possible. We are having conversations about what it might mean to hold cryptocurrency longer term. I'm excited to see Charity Water leading the way. They have like a Bitcoin water fund, and I think they're committed to not selling until at least 2023 or maybe even further out. And so it's a great model. We have some precedents in the sector of like holding on to stock and letting it appreciate for things like endowments. And so even if just a small fraction of our endowment funds could be cryptocurrency, I could see some huge growth for us.
And if I could just add to that too, I mean, we're certainly seeing a trend of more and more nonprofits wanting to hold crypto. It often tends to be the ones that have been working with us the longest because they've, over a couple of years started to see crypto go up. So those are usually the scenarios where they get more comfortable holding it, even if maybe they started by having everything automatically converted in the early days.
Super interesting. So thank you. Aaron, as you've implemented crypto, what are the stumbling blocks that you had? I think it's always important to know what lessons learned is always a great thing for a nonprofit to go into, and maybe you can just teach us.
Yes, absolutely. Well, we did a lot of vetting. We even thought, should we open our own Coinbase purse? What are the risks? What are the liabilities? And we wanted to do this with like an expeditious nature in mind. We had this gift coming. It was going to be a $5 million endowed fund that we're working on. And this is the seed money. So we had this like press release coming up. And so we were kind of on this timeline. So I challenged all of our money managers who currently custody our assets. Hey guys, what's the best solution? Well, guess what? They all came back to me across the board unanimously. The giving block. They're not they're not up to date yet enough to handle this. So it's all new to them. But guess what? I found this great website. And it's called The Giving Block. And so it was very easy. I made a call. I said, let's go, let's get this set up. Here's the deadline. I want to be live like ASAP. And they were able to execute. So, you know, it was pretty easy. I think stumbling block was maybe also just like what it connotes to hold crypto for some of our community foundation board members. I think there was a little hesitancy on, you know, is this even real money? You know, what is this? So just getting that approved for our board to then go ahead and set up with the Giving Block, but it's sold right away. So to me, it's no different than donating appreciated stock, and it's even easier than donating appreciated stock.
So a lot of your problems will be solved when people or another nonprofit when they get a link to this panel and they
So
can
easy,
hear
so
from
easy.
the
Just
experts,
click
right?
and donate, and then we can fill out a fund agreement later. So it's
Sounds
very
good. Sounds good. Alex, so when you're looking at this, as other nonprofits come on board and they're starting to accept cryptocurrencies, what are the barriers you're seeing out there for them? Is there anything government can do, other partners, are those issues for you?
I mean, I think the biggest thing remains education. There's just, I think, a lack of understanding of how widespread crypto has become. Like when we talk to nonprofits and start telling them things like, you know, there's now 300 million people using crypto. That tends to really surprise people, how many people are using crypto, and that there's, you know, trillions of dollars in this asset class now. Like people are usually pretty caught off guard by that. And it usually just takes a bit of time of explaining like, yes, crypto is real, first of all, right? And getting over some of these misconceptions, like you mentioned earlier, from the early days, right? They're worried it's tied to illicit activity, but then you start showing them the data of actually your traditional donors are more likely to be involved in illicit activity than your crypto donors as a percentage of, you know, transactions. So you start helping them kind of work through all these misconceptions, and certainly, you know, some of the points that Edwin made earlier about attracting younger donors is really appealing for nonprofits. And it's probably not surprising to hear, right, that most people using crypto are millennials and Gen Z. And actually, one thing that relates to this that I'd love to throw out here too, and maybe we can send this as a follow-up, but there was a really good survey or research report from CNBC that said 83% of millennial millionaires own crypto. And more than half of those millennial millionaires have at least 50% of their wealth in crypto, and nearly a third have at least 3/4 of their wealth in crypto. So that just goes to show people who have crypto are usually, you know, all in. This is really their preferred way to give. And these are usually, you know, net new donors. They weren't mailing a check every month before. These are people who are only donating because you accept crypto. And if you're not on the menu for taking crypto, they're probably going to go somewhere else that does take crypto.
Those are staggering numbers. I mean, they really are. And you're right. I've been researching this and I'm a little stunned that you just said that. So I'm going to check out that CNBC report as well. Edwin, I want you to comment on the same thing too. What are the barriers that nonprofits have? I mean, again, I just do look, because a lot of times when there's something new, it's usually government or something else that kind of stands in the way and slow, but it doesn't sound like that's the issue. Maybe it's messaging and that's it.
Well, I'd say from the government side, the only thing that kind of hangs out there is just like clarity, or not even clarity, but just we have an asset that functions very similarly to stock, but there are still some small issues with how we have to file tax documents with crypto that aren't related to stock. And that could be a barrier for a lot of smaller nonprofits. I think some vendors are starting to file some of those documents for nonprofits. So it's, again, the vendor community is taking the burden away from nonprofits, but I think it's kind of an unnecessary burden that's kind of put on the nonprofit sector. Beyond that, I would just say staff time and socialization are the two issues that you really have to get in front of in order to sell crypto internally. Everything else is pretty turnkey, pretty simple at this point.
So
Jake,
Michael.
Can I just add a little bit on to the perception issue and the messaging issue? I think one of the reasons why it may have been slowly to come onto adoption here is that we have a very a stable monetary system. Our financial system works for most people. And so people question, say, well, why do we need this new thing? Why do we need Bitcoin? But if you look outside the United States, outside Europe, a lot of these countries where you have unstable central banks, where you have runaway inflation, corrupt governments, they start to see the real advantage of holding wealth, holding assets in cryptocurrency. And so you actually see adoption at much higher rates outside the United States and Europe. And so as that perception starts to change, as people start to realize the value of cryptocurrency in these particular areas, I think you'll start to see more and more adoption here in the United States.
Okay, that's really interesting. And as a researcher, you hear some of these problems that are out there. What do you think research can play in actually solving some of those issues?
I think that's one. What determines why and how people trust money? At the end of the day, money is trust. People ask, is this real? Well, it's real if somebody is going to give me something from Amazon, if they accept Bitcoin in exchange. Anytime something is used as a medium of exchange, that's real. And so I think some of the research that we're doing is understanding how can we better understand what causes people to put trust in Bitcoin versus trust in the US dollar versus trust in some other Zimbabwe dollar. So that's one way on the research side. I think the other area is that we're kind of moving past the phase where nonprofits and foundations are accepting it, but they want to start to use it. And I want to hear from Edwin too about once you have it, certainly you can invest it. That's one thing that you can do. But what are some ways that you can just make decisions better? So for example, Bitcoin is not just programmable money. It can allow you to organize yourself better and make decisions. We've talked about DAOs, which are decentralized autonomous organizations. Just recently, 3 months ago, people raised $50 million in a week to buy a copy of the Constitution. You couldn't do that before. And this was done using cryptocurrency. And so how can we use these new tools to really transform society, raise funds very quickly, make decisions on what things to buy, where to send that cryptocurrency? And again, maybe we can hear from Edwin, because we have these assets. What's the best way to deploy them?
Yeah. And I want to get to the future of crypto in just a bit. I think that's weird. And I think Edwin and Alex are going to, so that's really interesting. I want to stay back. So Edwin, you mentioned taxes, and we've had a couple questions come in on the taxes. So Alex, I'm going to come to you on this right now, and then maybe Edwin can go into it as well. So Matt and Jane both asked fairly similar questions. So Matt says, how do you write off charitable crypto contributions to your taxes at the end of the year? And then Jane asks, Michael mentioned tax benefits for consumers who donate to Bitcoin. Can you elaborate on the tax benefits, and are there any concerns for the IRS? Maybe Alex, you can go into it, and then Edwin, you can jump into it too, and then we'll go to Aaron too. Alex?
Sure. Yes. On the tax front, as a donor, it's very similar to donating stocks. So if you have appreciated cryptocurrency that you donate, you don't have to pay capital gains taxes on the crypto, and you're going to get a deduction on your tax return based on the fair market value at the time of your donation. And assuming you're donating to a 501c3, they're tax exempt, they're not paying tax on it either. So both sides are quite a bit better off, depending on your tax bracket and things like that. You're probably looking at a 20 to 30% difference in sort of tax efficiency of donating crypto that's appreciated versus, let's say, donating with your credit card. So it's a pretty meaningful amount.
Edwin, your thoughts on this?
Exactly. I think Alex put it really succinctly. And I think the only other thing that I would add is part of the advantage of donating crypto is how quickly it's grown. And so go back to 2014 when we were first accepting crypto, $400 into your favorite stock and $400 into Bitcoin. Fast forward to today, and one of those has 100x return. So the incredible tax advantages that you get just because of the growth of the asset is an important part of the consideration as well.
So that's helpful, because I know that there's a lot of people coming in on that too, as I see the questions coming in. Aaron, you're a smaller nonprofit. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, I was just going to comment on that. If you bought it 7 cents a share and then it's $2, most likely at the end of the day, if you're heavily invested in crypto, why wouldn't you avoid those capital gains through donating? So it just makes tax planning sense. And then you get to select where it goes. Don't you want to select where your money goes? I know I do. So you can do that. So donate crypto.
That's that's good advice. I think it's really good advice, and I think you're doing your job when you're trying to steer a nonprofit. So Aaron, as you run a nonprofit here in the Cincinnati area, what advice do you have to other nonprofits that are looking to do this? What should they be thinking about?
So, I mean, my question is and will be, do you want to grow? Are you concerned about growth strategies? And why wouldn't you bring this in as a growth strategy? There's no liability here if you have the giving block handling it for you. And then it's just an opportunity to reach young donors who, historically aren't giving the way that our baby boomers are, or our greatest generation is, where they're talking about legacies and endowments. Let's reach that younger generation. And this is a very easy way to do so.
Great advice, Michael. So just for all our viewers at home, remember, if you have a question, please drop in the chat, and we're trying to get to them, all of them. We have a question from David, and it's on some of the controversies around crypto. And Michael, I thought maybe you could just talk about it a little bit. There's a lot of talk about how there's a lot of energy that's used with cryptocurrency and with NFTs. Sustainability concerns with this technology?
Right. So the way Bitcoin works is it does use energy to secure and validate that those transactions should actually take place. And so we've heard statistics like if Bitcoin were a country, it would rank number 27 in energy use. A couple comments to that. One is that the energy used is to secure the network. Remember, this is a global permissionless network, in that we have to make sure it's secure. We don't have time to get into the details, but the way that's secured and people feel safe by holding Bitcoin is because that energy is being used. Now, a lot of the energy use is renewable. There was a report that was just recently released a couple weeks ago by the Bitcoin Mining Council that about 68% is being used with renewable energy sources. So it is driving demand for renewable energy sources. The second comment I would make is that there are other alternatives to just mining Bitcoin and being energy intensive. And these are some of the things that we're researching in our lab. There are other cryptocurrencies out there like Ethereum, for example, that are moving to a different way of securing the network. It's called proof of stake. And what that means is that it's much, much less energy intensive than say Bitcoin mining would be.
And if I could just add one thing.
Alex, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, that's spot on. Like, this part about, how the energy is being generated and the fact that such a high proportion of it is renewable is important. But the other thing too is, I mean, everyone always says it uses so much energy, and that's true, but it's always relative, right? Like, for example, Bitcoin mining uses less energy than Christmas lights. So it's not that crazy of an amount. And the other piece being that it actually gets more efficient over time. Every transaction you're adding isn't necessarily meaning you're using more energy. Just based on the way the system works. And the other piece to keep in mind too would be, if we're comparing this to other more traditional methods like the gold industry or the financial services industry, it's actually quite a bit more energy efficient. So I think it's important to have that additional perspective and context around the energy usage.
That's really interesting. And I'm glad that question came up too, because I think it's also important I think when you're trying to demystify something, you got to address all parts of it too, even the controversial part. We've got another question from the audience too, from Daniel. And Alex, I'll stay with you on this one too. He says, how stable is crypto as a currency? It fluctuates 10, 20, 30% across months. Please comment on its stability.
I mean, the price will continue to fluctuate, right? This is an open market, just like, stock prices and other asset prices will change based on supply and demand. The reason crypto is more volatile is because it's a newer and a smaller market than, let's say, the global stock market. So, it doesn't take as much money to move the market one way or another. And because it's newer, as the price increases and the market cap increases, it'll over time become less volatile. But in the short term, it will continue to stay volatile. But for the sake of nonprofits, that volatility is actually a great thing in the sense that it's creating a lot more gains for people. And when people talk about volatility, they always assume it's downwards volatility. But for crypto, it's actually upwards volatility. If you look at this on a multi-year time frame, since crypto is the best performing asset class in the last 5 and 10 year period, the volatility is really to the upside. So there certainly is short-term volatility to the downside, but that's more on a day-to-day basis, not on a multi-year basis. And as a nonprofit, you want people having that appreciated asset so they can make more tax-efficient donations. And ultimately, as a nonprofit, you're protected against the volatility, while still getting the benefits of having people, donate appreciated assets.
Aaron, does that volatility ever spook folks that you're fundraising from, or in your board or anything like that?
I think on our board, absolutely. When we were just going through the approval process, I think crypto was like, ooh, bad. You know, we have so many money managers. They're all very conservative on the board. They're older gentlemen typically on the board. But guess what? It's run by a young millennial female, and our vice president is a young millennial female, and we need to grow and change. So they got over that when the giving block, you know, just the fact that we aren't liable, that makes them feel better. And it was like, why wouldn't we accept this gift that someone wants to give us? It just, to me, it was like a no-brainer, you know, but I think it is met with hesitancy and still is, and a little bit of grumbling about crypto because it's also new and we have a lot of older bankers and they're like, you know, just a little hesitant. So so I think, you know, it is easy. We, like, our younger donors are now being reached, and you know, we're just excited about the future.
And I'd love to jump in as well.
Yeah, Edmund, please go ahead.
We were one of the positive beneficiaries of the volatility in that at the end of 2017, when Bitcoin hit, I think it was like $21,000, right at that time, we received a one-time donation of $1 million worth of Bitcoin from someone that we didn't even have a relationship with. And so I think, you know, Michael, this could be a research project for you and the team, but if you kind of map out Bitcoin prices and Bitcoin growth with Google Trend data on Donate Bitcoin, I would imagine that there's some sort of correlation, because people, when they see those gains, they want to make sure that they're getting that tax advantage at the highest point possible. And so we were absolutely a beneficiary of that.
That is an amazing thing. And then Michael, let's try to see if we can have
On
that
the list.
project.
Thanks, Edwin.
So I want to go back to the concept of NFTs, and this is something that floats around cryptocurrencies. Are you, Edwin, thinking about NFTs in your donor strategy at all? And I'm going to come to Aaron next, and then Alex on the same question, because I think this is something that is interesting for everybody.
We absolutely are, and from two different angles. The first is we think it's going to be a great opportunity for a different type of fundraising campaign. And so we love the opportunity to tell the story of United Way. We're kind of a complex animal, but one of the incredible services we provide is called 211. It's a 24/7 call center that's available for people who need somewhere to call if they need food or rent assistance or utility assistance. We received 27 million calls last year. And so the concept that we're putting together now would be an NFT collection that represents the top needs from those calls: COVID relief, rent assistance, utility assistance. And so I'm on Discord every day looking for artists, direct messaging people. If anyone in the audience is an artist, reach out to me. But it's an opportunity for us to bring that story of the work that we do to life. The other opportunity, and I think, you know, Michael kind of hit on this a little bit, is the royalties for artists. And what can that mean for communities who have been ignored by the traditional art community, the same communities that we focus on in our work, under-resourced and marginalized communities, to bring them into that ecosystem and help them create their own NFTs and be able to be more economically stable.
Aaron, is this something you're looking at all? You're on mute.
Sorry, can you repeat that question again, Jay? I'm sorry.
Are you looking at NFTs in your donor strategy at all? Is this something you're looking at currently, or is it something that's like maybe off in the future?
I think it's off into the future a bit. I think we're just getting acclimated and our feet wet. And as a community foundation, we are still more conservative on that endowment trajectory and our thinking. But I think definitely in the next 5 years, I think so.
Well, and I think the reason I ask it is because there is a difference between size and scale, and Edwin's been doing this since 2014, and looking into these different things and seeing where everyone else falls on the spectrum is important and getting them comfortable. Alex, how do you think about NFTs on the platform?
I think they're going to play a huge role this year, and they certainly played a huge role last year. Last year was really when we saw what we call NFT philanthropy take off. We saw somewhere between $12 and $13 million donated that came from, artists selling NFTs and donating the proceeds. And that was just last year. We also had our first ever NF Tuesday, which is, our spin of Giving Tuesday, but for the NFT community, which was really cool to bring together the community. So it's certainly going to be a big deal. We're playing a really active role, not just with the creators themselves, but also with the NFT platforms to build giving into those products and make it as easy as possible to, let's say, you sell an NFT and automatically 25% or 50% or 100% even automatically goes to that charity's crypto wallet.
Michael, I know that this is like an area that really NFTs, again, we talked about a little bit with your research before, that really does excite, younger folks and researchers. Any other thoughts since you've heard Edwin and Alex as they're approaching it going forward?
Yeah, just to add a little bit on it, it is really the students that are leading the way on this. I've had students that are working with these nonprofits to create the NFTs. I think part of the issue is figuring out like what does that royalty amount need to be? How do you choose the amount that goes back to the creator to maximize the revenue? So those are some of the research questions that I think are still unanswered that we're exploring. And how do you think about the market for NFTs? They're very different. We talked a lot about artwork, for example, but then there are also NFTs, which are basically avatars that you can use in games. And so you can take this NFT that's a gaming element, for lack of a better word, and you can move it around. And how do you value that? And how does that become part of a role for a donation to a nonprofit? So we're still very early in the nonprofit space. And so one takeaway is that there's not just one type of NFT. It actually plays out in multiple different ways.
Yeah, and I think that's why part of the conversation, it does play out in multiple different ways, whether it's real estate or sneakers or art, and I think people get confused in terms of what it actually is. So the more we can do to explain to folks, these will be used for this. So we've got another question from Dave here, and I'm going to try to distill them away. The stats that we've talked about, where people that invest in crypto are more giving in a lot of ways. Do you know, have you distilled any reasons for that? And I'll go to Alex, to you for that. The motivation between a crypto investor and a traditional investor and why they're so giving?
I think there's two reasons off the top of my head. And one is simply the fact that they're younger. I think in general, you're seeing that millennials and Gen Z and younger people are incredibly charitable, even when you're not talking about crypto. I think there's good data to back that up. And I think the second piece is that when it comes to crypto specifically, because of that upwards volatility, right? Crypto has been the best performing asset class in the last 5 and 10 year period. People are going to their financial advisors or their CPAs or tax attorneys or whoever's advising them on their taxes and saying, how should I think about donating? And they're probably going to say something along the lines of donate your most highly appreciated asset first. So I think that is a huge driver of this. And, that on top of the younger demographics also means that a lot of these people have made a lot of this money pretty early in their life and pretty quickly, right? So I think they're much more likely to be charitable when that happens.
Edwin, as you've done this for a while now, what are some of the biggest surprises or the biggest surprise you've had? Probably a pleasant surprise is my guess when you started down this path.
Yeah, it was definitely that $1 million gift that came in with
it's pretty good.
No outreach. The other is just the positive reception that we've gotten from the community. And so we plan on being in Miami in April for Bitcoin Week. And it's just access to a demographic, access to a community that we just wouldn't have had access to otherwise. And so that's been I'd say like the big surprise that's, keeps me happy.
That way is happy. We're happy. So we've got another question from Chris, and it says, "What will the impact to donations be if we come into a bear market in crypto and a crypto winter?" I think there's, again, this speaks to the skepticism of the folks that are watching, that are listening to this and saying, "Why are we going to do this?" And I know some of this right now, it's about transferring to cash right away, right? So we're doing that here, but this is down the future about if we start to keep crypto. Alex, your thoughts on this quick question, and then we'll go to a few other things too.
Yeah, this is one we hear a lot, and the response is probably a bit counterintuitive in the sense that often when crypto prices go down, at least in the short term, we actually often see an increase in donations because people are creating taxable events when they sell. So they have a tax liability now when they didn't before, when they hadn't sold yet. So it's an interesting dynamic. Sometimes these months where you might see the price go down 20%, there's actually a spike in donations, right? I think if long term, right, obviously if it trends downwards, for years and years and years, which I think is highly unlikely, I think you'd start to see a serious impact then. But I think the days of Bitcoin going down 80% or something like that in a multi-year bear market are probably behind us, but we'll see, I guess.
Right. Well, we're not economists, but that's a really interesting thing, because sometimes it's very counterintuitive how this stuff works. Aaron, your thoughts on this? You're shaking your head. I'd love to get your thoughts here.
No, I think, what does any financial advisor tell you, right? Like in a down market, and I think the same is applicable for crypto, throw cash in now, you know what I mean? It's only going to go up, and it's a great time to invest. So I think it's a good investment strategy. Take a little risk. That's what comes to mind.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Edwin, so you're, like I said in the top, you're one of the great change agents in this whole space. What does the United Way look like as you continue to innovate here? What are you trying to get? What do you want to do next?
I mean, I appreciate you hyping me up, Jay. I don't think I'm one of the great change agents. I feel more like I'm a 8th year undergrad, and I'm just like excited to show people everything I've learned over that time. I think the big shift for United Way is to move from being an organization that accepts cryptocurrency to an organization that knows how to leverage cryptocurrency and is actually part of the community. And so the conversations that we've been having with other nonprofits and with exchanges and vendors in the space are showing us different pathways for how we can do our impact work differently. And so had a conversation with our VP in the Latin America region, and they were sharing a little bit about potential for a play to earn model in Guatemala to provide resources to women in Guatemala who otherwise might migrate out of the country because of the economic instability and violence. And so how can those play to earn models potentially be part of the solution to keep people in place and to give them financial resources? We're seeing incredible work happening in other parts of the country, in the United States and in Haiti. And so the opportunity for us is just to understand where the future is going and be able to leverage cryptocurrency as part of our actual impact model. The other big part of where we're going as United Way specifically is I've got my work plan goals for the year. And Q1, we're going to put together a cryptocurrency toolkit for our network. We have 1,000 United Ways in the United States. I'm getting about 2 calls a week from people who are interested in accepting crypto from just within our network. So we're going to distill down everything that we've learned and share that with our nonprofits, and partnering with folks like Alex and others to make sure that they have reputable, reliable vendors that they can work with as well.
Well, maybe we'll get you a spike in those calls after this presentation. So
I'm open.
Michael, talk to us a little bit about the Digital Futures Lab and what that's going to look like here.
Yeah, it's going to be a space where we're going to have some of this hardware, which we've talked about. We've talked about crypto mining and its energy efficiency. So we're going to explore solutions of how we can get those energy costs down. We've already started to reach out to partners, other corporate sponsors, but people that can help us think about these issues to be more energy efficient. Just as an example, we recently had a donor donate a crypto mining rig, and we had a student fix that. We had a student optimize that. And as part of that, the crypto that's being generated is going actually back to a local high school, to the School of the Creative and Performing Arts here in Cincinnati. So they're going to be receiving the crypto from that. So that again is like an example of where we get all the right people in the right place, and the magic can happen, and not just the university benefits, but you can see the community really benefit from that as well. That's one example of a project. We've got more that we're working on, but really excited to see what this future is going to look like.
So I'm gonna just ask you very quickly, just to explain what a mining rig is for people that don't know what that is.
Yeah, sure. So with Bitcoin, we need to make sure that nobody goes back and tries to change those transactions. So we don't want for Alex to send Aaron 5 Bitcoin, and then later Aaron goes back and goes to the network and says, well, Alex actually sent me 10 Bitcoin. Okay, so the way that happens, that we preserve the security of the network, it's basically these computers solve a math problem that once that solution is found, it makes it virtually impossible for somebody to go back and change that, right? To change the amount that was sent. So that is very energy intensive. And we've talked about before, we're working on ways to make sure that those aren't wasteful resources.
I can see why you're very good students explaining things in ways that someone like me can understand it. So thank you for that. Erin, what's next for you?
Well, thanks, Jay. I think just for the Northern Cincinnati Foundation, it's obviously getting out that this is something that can be donated. It's on our donation item list, that you can donate crypto along with, the usual things like appreciated stock, cash, etc. So I think just working with our first generation philanthropists, that's always been our goal, is working with those younger individuals that started their businesses in their garage and have grown and are looking for ways to be charitable. So we're just really honing in on our niche and looking forward to more growth.
It's a fantastic organization that you run. So thanks for doing that, Erin. Alex, you've explained what the Giving Block does today. Where do you see it 5 years from now?
Yeah, I mean, for us, the biggest goal is making sure that, essentially all nonprofits are able to accept crypto donations. We're of course biased, but we think that it'll be just as common to accept crypto as it is credit cards in the next, let's call it 3 to 5 years. And it'll almost get to the point where it's unusual if you're not accepting crypto. That's at least our hope, and we think that's going to play out.
I mean, I think you're probably right. I mean, again, as evidenced by the Super Bowl that we just watched, and I hate to keep bringing up the Bengals loss, but as evidenced by that, it is literally everywhere, and you can't really escape it. So it has been commonplace. So look, we're winding down, and what we're going to try to do is put all the resources here of the panelists here in our chat, so that you the audience can see, click on it, and try to go right to them. Michael, I want to end with you on this question. So we try to do these conversations of consequence through Digital Futures and this Flashpoint series. What are you hoping comes out of a conversation like this? I mean, you're kind of a convening authority here with some really powerful folks in this area. What's your goal here?
Yeah, part of this, I mentioned that our mission here is education. And so by providing this forum, I think there's going to be a lot of additional questions that are generated out of this conversation. And we want to be that resource. And I'll drop my email address and information in the chat box. And so if you're an organization, whether it's nonprofit, corporation, government entity that's just wanting to learn more about this space, then please feel free to reach out to me and we can chat. Because I think that's the first step, is just getting your head around that space. And then the second piece is if there are particular research projects that you might have. So you might have an idea around NFTs or around a particular cryptocurrency, and you're wanting, or as Edwin mentioned earlier, the relationship between Google Trends and the price of Bitcoin. So if you have a particular research question, again, please feel free to reach out to me. We want to be that resource. And if we'll find students, if I'm not the one who can help to research that, we will make sure that those questions get answered.
Appreciate that very much. And look, I hope this is the start of something that is going to be really big for University of Cincinnati as we delve into cryptocurrency and philanthropy especially. I want to thank all my guests, Erin Clemens, Edwin Gautier, Alex Wilson, and Michael Jones. I think it's been a fascinating conversation, something that I didn't know much about. I knew about crypto and I read the headlines, but I didn't really know how it was being applied here. I hope everyone else has learned something. I want to remind people that the Office of Research has their yearly Research Innovation Week, March 28th to April 1st, and there's some fantastic programming going on there, and I hope you check it out. Again, thank you all. We'll be doing this Flashpoint series, continuing it, and we've got another one with the president of the University of Cincinnati coming up in March during Research Innovation Week, and we're looking forward to it. Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks all.